Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our today's lecture is the continuation of the previous lecture relating to lateral earth pressures. So, in our last lecture, we discussed uh, both Rankine's and Coulomb's theory for determination of active earth pressure. It is very important to note here that Coulomb presented his earth pressure theories a century before Rankine, so we can say that he is father or his originator of this active earth pressure theory. In our last lecture, we only discussed the vertical wall faces and we saw that how the failure plane would be forming behind them. In our today's lecture, we will see that if the wall face is not vertical, then how Coulomb's theory is going to help us out to solve the problem for the earth pressure calculations. Talking about retaining wall faces, there are different types. They are not limited, they are just examples. For example, this one is a gravity wall, and then we have the semi-gravity wall that includes a reinforcement, cantilever. You see, all of them have inclined faces. This is another example of the counterfort wall. Okay, so all of them have inclined faces. So in our today's lecture, we'll deal with the inclined faces. So assumptions of Coulomb's active earth pressure theory against retaining walls. It says soil is homogeneous and it contains both C and Phi. And it assumes rupture surface is a plane surface, and it considers the friction between the wall and the soil. And then it says that the failing wedge is a rigid body that is going to move. And then there is friction wall between friction and with the backfill. And failure is a plane again means that we are dealing with a two-dimensional problem. So this is how Coulomb's theory is explained. You see that we have an inclined retaining wall that is shown by the brown or orange color. Okay, and the Coulomb says that there is a failing wedge that is going to fail along the rupture plane. So rupture plane is, or the failure plane is indicated by AD. So what we are going to do is that we are going to calculate the weight of the wedge A, B, C, D. You see, they are marked here. I'll highlight them: A, B, C, and D. So the question comes, how do we mark them? So easier method is that we select a suitable scale, and then based on the scale we can calculate the area of the failing wedge. Okay, for example, if I zoom this out, you see that it is plotted on a graph paper. So we can say that it's not necessary, but you can, for example, say that this one box, it says that one box is, let's say this is 1 kg. Okay, so it's your choice, or I'm sorry, we should decide it in distance. So let's say we can say that one box is equal to 100 centimeter by 100 centimeter. So based on that, we will plot our diagram according to the scale. Okay, and then you will find out the area of this wedge, of this pink colored wedge. You will find out the area, that how much is the area, and then how can we find the weight. Weight is equal to area into the unit weight of the soil that is making up the wedge. Because it's a 2D problem, so that's why area will be multiplied by 1. So eventually we will get our weight in kgs or pounds or whatever units you are using. So this is how we will calculate the weight, and weight acts at the centroid of this wedge. So we will also find out the centroid of the wedge, and it acts vertically downward. And then he says that Coulomb says it's considering that soil is containing both C and Phi, so that's why it has a tension crack. And we know that the depth of the tension crack is ZC, and if you remember, that is 2C over gamma under root Ka for an active earth pressure case. Okay, so the tension crack is there. So we will consider the rupture plane from the base of the retaining wall up to point D, from A to D, that the end of the rupture wall. So the first weight that we can calculate by plotting the figure on a suitable scale, it's better to plot on a graph, and then we can find out weight. I'll write it here by simply multiplying unit weight of the soil with the area of the figure. Then the second thing comes is the CW, that is the wall friction between the soil and the wall, So how we can find out CW? By multiplying unit value of CW with the LW, and LW is the effective length that is participating in the wall friction. Okay, so LW, and what we have done here, why we have considered, let's say let us call this point as F. So LW is from A to F, from A to F. And why is that? Because we are neglecting the top depth, that is ZC, because we are considering that is in having tension crack, so it is not participating in cohesion. So the second force, that is the wall friction, will come from CW multiplied by LW, and LW is from A to F. And lastly, the third thing that is known to us is the cohesion value, that is actually the shear strength that is resisting the failure. So how you can do it? You can multiply the cohesion value of the soil with the length LF, that is indicated here, and it is from the base of the retaining wall up to the end of the tension crack. So these are the known values, and what are the unknowns that we have to find are the PA, that is the active earth pressure, and also we not only want to know the value of the PA, but we also want to know the angle of inclination, that is at an angle delta from the normal to the wall face. This is normal to the wall face. And lastly, the resultant of all the forces, that where is acting. So it is acting at an angle phi from the normal of the rupture plane AD. So how Coulomb suggests the solution of this problem is by drawing a force diagram. So you see here, the first thing to draw is the weight vector W, and once again you can select some suitable scale. For example, we can say that once again you can say that one box is equal to maybe 1 centimeter. I'm sorry, force diagram will be in because it is in length, so we will measure it in centimeters. So maybe I can say that 1 centimeter is equal to 1 Newton. So based on the scale, it is not necessary, but you can use that to plot the force diagram. So based on this, I will plot the weight vector first with the red color, this one, and then this is vertical, so I'm not worried about its orientation. Then secondly, I will plot from the head of the weight, I'll plot the cohesion vector. So once again, cohesion vector will be based on the same scale, 1 centimeter is equal to 1 Newton, and I have calculated the value by multiplying the unit cohesion with the length LF, and I know the orientation. Okay, so if I am considering a failure plane, let's say at an angle theta, so this C vector will be at an angle theta to the head of the wall. And lastly, I will, after C, from the head of the C, I will plot CW, and CW length of the vector will depend on the value calculated, that is CW into LW. Okay, and the orientation is along the orientation of the retaining wall. Let's call that as beta. So that means from the horizontal, this is at an angle of beta. So we have we have plotted the 3 known vectors, and lastly we know the direction of the active earth pressure, that is making at angle delta to the normal of the retaining wall. So I will plot that direction, and also I know the direction of the resultant vector R, that is making angle phi with the normal to the rupture plane. Okay, so that means I only know the direction, so I can simply plot it, and then, but I don't know the values, I can simply plot it. So we will learn in our in further 1 to 2 minutes that how to find the value of PA and R. Okay, and one important thing is that when I say normal to the wall face or normal to a rupture plane, so for example, this is the wall face of the retaining wall. So if I want to draw the normal to it, so this is the normal, that means it is making an angle of 90 degrees from the wall face. So if I select vector, let's say I'm say that I have drawn a vector and it is making an angle theta, so I can say that this value R, this vector R, is making an angle theta with the normal to the wall face. So now we see how to solve this Coulomb's solution. because we know that we have three knowns and two unknowns. Okay, so the person who suggested a graphical solution was Kuhlmann's, and we will see how Kuhlmann's solution works to solve out the Coulomb's theory. So let's say how we start this process is, let's say we have this retaining wall, it's indicated by this orange or brown color. So you see that the backfill surface is curved, that is AC to C and C1, and the wall face is AB. The wall face, retaining wall, is making an angle alpha. It is making an angle alpha with the horizontal. Okay, and we are considering different failure options. So this is how it works, that we will consider different failure options that are going to fail, and then we will see that if it is appropriate or is it the right value or not. Okay, so what values are important to note? First value that is important to note is the angle alpha. Okay, that is the angle of inclination of the retaining wall face from the horizontal. And then what we are going to do is that this black colored dotted line, this is the normal to the wall face. So the active earth pressure PA will make an angle of plus delta, that is below the normal to the wall face, and if it is a passive earth pressure case, then it will make a negative angle, and that is above the normal to the wall face. Okay, currently we are only discussing the active earth pressure, so for now we should know that PA will make an angle delta with the normal to the wall face, and from the vertical we can say that it's making angle theta. PA is making an angle theta with the PA vector, with the vertical. So first step to the solution is that we will, from the point B, we will mark a horizontal line, this horizontal line here. We will mark this green color horizontal line. Okay, and then from that horizontal line we will make a slope line. And why is it a slope line? Because it is making an angle of phi dash with the horizontal, and this is the normal angle of the soil that is making up the backfill material. Okay, so that's why it's also called as a slope line. So the first step was to make the horizontal line, the second step was to make the slope line, and slope line is making an angle of phi dash from the horizontal. The third step is to draw a line from the end of the retaining wall, that is point B, and this is making an angle theta from the slope line. And what is angle theta? Theta is the angle of PA, active earth pressure, from the vertical, and from maths we can tell that theta is equal to alpha minus delta, where alpha is the slope of the retaining wall and delta is the friction angle, or the we can say that it is the angle PA is making with the normal to the wall face. All right, so after these three steps, what we are going to do is that we are going to consider different failure wedges, and then we will see if they fall or not. So how you're going to consider failure wedges is that from point B mark a point C2. It's just arbitrary. This is step 4. In step 5 mark another failure wedge. Just a minute, let me zoom it up. So step 4 was to mark a arbitrary failure plane, that is from point B to C2, and then in 5th step mark another failure point, and then in 6th step mark another failure plane. These are the proposed rupture plane or failure plane, whatever we want to call them. This is the plane along which failure is going to happen in case of active earth pressure. Alright, so after marking this, what we are going to do is that we'll move forward based on the same discussion we did just a minute ago, how to calculate the area of the wedge. So what I am doing is that I am first considering a wedge ABC2. It is colored with pink color. So what will I do is that I will calculate the area of this wedge, okay, by plotting this whole diagram on maybe graph paper, or however you are convenient with, either selecting a suitable line scale, okay. Whatever method you want to adopt is that whatever you want to do, you are going to find out the area of this wedge and then multiply that area with unit weight of the soil, so it will give you the weight W1, okay. So, and we know that weight acts from the centroid and it acts vertically downward, okay. So after that, what you are going to do is that you are going to select a scale to plot the weight vector on the slope line. So this is the slope line, and I have, let's say, calculated that this is 100 kgs, and then after calculating from the area of the wedge that the weight is 100 kg, I have to plot this on the slope line. So what, let's say I'll say that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 kgs. So what will I do now? From point B, I will measure 10 centimeters and mark this point D1, because 10 centimeters means that it is 100 kgs. So based on this selected scale, it's totally your option. What you have, whatever you want to select, whatever you are comfortable with, you can use that scale, and based on the scale, mark a point D. Now from point D, mark a line that is parallel to BL, parallel to BL, the line that you plotted in the step 3, okay. And where that point is hitting the trial wedge end, or the where it is hitting the trial rupture surface, mark that as E1, okay. So I have marked this as E1. So now I have obtained this line E1 D1. D1 was the point selected by choosing a suitable scale to represent the weight of the trial wedge, and from point D1 I have made a line parallel to BL and hit with the assumed rupture plane, and that was E1. So now I have line E1 D1. That was the first step. In the second step, what you are going to do is that you are now going to select a bigger wedge now. So now I have selected a wedge ABC, that is a bigger wedge, and now I have to calculate its area and then multiply that area with the unit weight of the soil. It will give me W2, and based on previous method, I will now select on the same scale. The same scale now we have to follow. Based on the same scale, I will now mark point D2, and from point D2 make a line parallel to BL, and where it hits the assumed rupture plane, that is E2, okay. And now in the third step, I will consider another big wedge, okay, and then I'll repeat the same procedure. I will calculate the area of the bigger wedge, that is W3, and then mark the bigger wedge on the slope line here, and after marking the point D3, I will make a line parallel to BL, and then where it hits the assumed rupture plane, so that point is E3, okay. You see previous values are lesser, D1 is lesser, D2 is larger, and D3 is the largest. And after that, once you are done with your assumed rupture planes, what you are going to do is you are going to join the points E1, E2 and E3. The line starts from the end of the structure of the retaining wall, and it moves and it curves from point E1, E2 and E3, and we call that line as the Kuhlmann's line, okay. So what I have done, simply I marked the point E1, E2 and E3 in the previous steps, and I drew a line that starts from the base of the retaining wall from B, and it moved E1, E2 and E3, and we call that line as the Kuhlmann's line. So after drawing the Kuhlmann's line, what we are going to do is we are going to make a line tangent to the curve, and that line that you're making tangent should be parallel to the slope line. Parallel to the slope line. This was the slope line and this is the tangent. So I have marked the tangent to this Kullman's line or the Kullman's curve, and where the point of tangency is, that means where the curve is touching the tangent at one point, we mark that point as E, and then from point E draw a line parallel to BL. Okay, this line is parallel to BL, and where it hits the slope line we call that as D. That is the weight of the rupture plane. So then what we do, we will mark this point. We have selected the point E from the point of tangency, right? So I will start a line that starts from base of the retaining wall, that is point B. Okay, so just a minute. Okay, I'll go back to my figure. Okay. So now I am selecting point B and then point E, where the point of tangency was approximately here, and I will mark this rupture plane. So according to Kullman's method, this is the actual rupture plane at which the failure is going to happen. Okay, and this whole wedge is going to fail in the active earth pressure failure case. Okay, so this whole wedge is the failure wedge, and this is the actual failure plane where the failure is going to happen. So if you want to design anything for the retaining wall, we can use this trial wedge, use this wedge for calculation of the active earth pressures. So this was all for the Kullman's method for calculating the trial wedge. Okay. Now one important thing is that if our backfill is supporting a surcharge load, maybe a point load or surcharge load, then how to add that based on the Kullman's method? So it's very simple. So let us assume that let's see, select a green color. So let's say that there was a load Q here. This is a point load, and then we have a UDL of, let's say, 2 TSF. Okay, just as example. So how I'm going to address is that where the, if you see it is just at the end of the assumed rupture plane, so what I'm going to do is that I am going to add that Q in the weight calculation. So this time when I'll mark point D1, so 10 centimeter was for the weight W1, and then I'll add Q here. This is the weight Q, so this will be my new point, let's say D1 dash. That includes W1 as well as it includes the point load Q that is acting on the surface of the backfill. So that means this I have just added. So here this is W1 plus D. This is the total length up to D dash. W1 plus D. So that means now I will draw a line parallel to BL, approximately parallel to BL. So this will be the E1 dash value that I'm going to use. So in the second step, this was Q here and this is UDL here. So again it will remain same. Now here D2 dash will have, if I mark this point D2 dash, it will have W1 plus W2 and the Q value, and from here I'll mark the line parallel to PL, and that will be E2 dash. And lastly, in the third wedge, which also includes the UDL load, in that we will also add that load in our chart on the slope line. Just a minute. So I will add that here. So that means, sorry, where did it go? Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay, so we had Q here and we have a UDL here of 2TSF. So that means now point D3 will be plotted here, D3 dash. So this total length, where did I go? So this total length of the line along the slope line will be W1 plus W2 plus W3 plus Q and then the 2 TSF load. It will include all the loading that is coming on the surcharge load. So get the point that we have to add everything. So from here W1 plus W2 plus W3 plus Q plus the 2 TSF load. So this is the point D3 dash, and then I'll draw a line parallel to line BL, so it will be E3 dash. So that means I'll have a new curve and it will have a new portion, then it will give us a new rupture plane wherever the point of tangency is. Okay. Same thing is explained here from this figure from Tarzagian Peck's book. So this was the original, the green color I'm marking. Let me choose a thicker pen so it's more visible. I don't know why this gets stuck whenever I'm using the OBS recording system. Maybe it's a heavier software, I guess. So this is the original Kalman's curve by plotting E1, E2 and E3 without any surcharge load. So if we have a surcharge load that is shown here by this, then this will be the new Kalman's curve. That is including the effect of the point load as well as the UDL, whatever is acting on that. We don't have to worry about it. It's just for understanding that how is it going to act, or how is it going to affect the Kalman's curve. So as the Kalman curve is shifted, so that means initially this was the original. If without any surcharge load, this is going to be a failure plane, and if we have surcharge load, then let me select a different color. Then this is going to be the failure plane. This one. This hole will fail if we are considering only the, with the red color, this if we are considering the point loads also. Now after this, there is a second method that was also produced by Coulomb. He himself presented a graphical solution for his theory. So we call that as trial wedge method. Trial wedge method is pretty much similar to the Kalman's method, with the only difference is that this method also considers the C and phi soil. In Kalman's method, we are only considering the phi soil that does not have any C, but in case of Coulomb's trial wedge method, it considers the value of cohesion also. This is for a C phi soil. So what is basically happening is this, that we have same assumed trial failure planes, but how is it different? That we have to first find out the depth of the tension crack, and we know that this is equal to 2c over gamma under root Ka. So find out that value, mark that value from the ground surface. I have marked all these assumed failure plane. So failure plane will be a straight line up to that, up to the end of the tension cracks, okay, and then it will become a vertical line. All right, so this is how we will mark the failure planes. All right, first it is an first it is an inclined line, and then after reaching the depth of tension crack it becomes really vertical. All right. So according to Coulomb, the active earth pressure will make an angle of delta that is positive from the normal to the retaining wall, and if it's a passive case it will make a negative angle delta that is above the normal to the retaining wall. Okay, so it considers the value Cw, that is the force of attraction between the wall and the soil, and then it considers the cohesion along the rupture plane. Okay, these are the same forces. Then also it considers the weight of the failing wedge, just like we did in the Coulom's method. Alright, so what we are going to do is that we have, in the first step we decided we selected some assumed failure planes. In the second step, just like Coulom's method, we will first assume a wedge. Alright, for example, we have selected this wedge B, E1 and A. So we will find out the area of the wedge and then multiply that area with gamma to find out the weight W1. And Cw will be from multiplying Cw with the length of the line AB dash, because we know that above it we have tension crack, so that will not count towards the Cw calculation. Similarly, we will calculate the force of cohesion C1, that is from A to point D1, that is the end of the tension crack. So C1 will be multiplied by the length, let's say the length is AD1 of this length. Okay, so we will calculate this, and according to Coulomb, the resultant vector R makes an angle of phi from the normal to the rupture plane. Alright, so now what we do, we mark a line. In this we have to make force polygons. This is the way of Coulomb that he makes drawings to do the calculation. So we have marked a line OY, and along of OY line select once again scale. Let's say I'm again selecting 1 centimeter is equal to 10 kgs. This is just a assumed value. Okay, so based on that I will mark the OW vector. This is O and this is W point here, and this OW is equal to the weight W1 according to this scale, and it is vertical direction, so there's no problem. And then after that, from the tail of OW or the vector OW, I will draw the head of the vector CW, and I know the length of the CW because I can calculate it by multiplying CW with the AB dash value. Okay, so I have marked this vector CW, and I also know the direction because I know that it is angle alpha from the horizontal, so angle alpha from the horizontal. So I mark the value CW, and then I also can calculate this angle, let's say beta, that is the beta angle from the rupture plane, and I also can calculate the value of C because I can multiply the C with the rupture plane, that is AD1. So multiply that value C, and I also know the orientation, so I can mark the vector C and CW. So if I draw it again, so this is O and this is Y, and let's say OY is just a line, don't confuse it. Okay, let's say I have just a line, so W1 is the length of the vector based on the scale, based on the selected scale, that is the weight of the wedge. And then from the tail I have drawn the vector C, and I know the orientation as well as I know the length of the line because I've selected the scale. And from the tail of C I will plot the vector CW. I also know the orientation, and I also know the value or the length of the CW value. Okay, and now what we are going to do is that we want to know that what are the value of PA and what is the value of R. So I know the value of PA because I can calculate it. Okay, once again, in just like previously, we can say that this is making an angle theta with the vertical. So based on the same value, based on same assumption, let me lower it down a little bit. This was W1. So I know the value of PA. I don't know the value of PA, but I just know the angle. But its angle from the vertical, that is theta, and theta is equal to alpha. We have already done that. Theta is equal to alpha minus delta. So sorry, this is theta. So I will mark this line of PA, that is making an angle theta with the vertical. Okay, and then also I know I can know the value of R1, that is making angle phi from the wall face. So by geometry I can find the direction. So I will start the vector. I have started vector PA from the head of W1, and I will start the vector R1 from the tail of CW. So I will mark the vector R here. Okay, this is R, and wherever they're intersecting I will note that point. So this becomes PA and this becomes R. So that is indicated here in this figure. So this is what you're going to do, is that we know C, its direction as well as its value. We know CW, we know its direction and value. We know W1, we know its direction and value. But for PA we only know the orientation, and for R vector, that is having an angle of phi with the normal to the rupture plane. Okay, so we can also plot that. So wherever they intersect, so they can tell us that, okay, and from the length based on the same scale I can now estimate the value of R, and I can estimate the value of PA. Okay, but this is just for this trial wedge that is having a weight of W1. In the third step, just like Kalman's method, we are now going to assume a bigger wedge. Okay, and then based on the bigger wedge we will calculate its W2. Okay, and then also we will calculate its remaining values. Now, one thing important to note here is that the value of CW is not going to change, the orientation as well as its value, because this is again fixed, that is AB dash. Value of CW is fixed between AB dash. Okay, so that is fixed, so this remains constant. Okay, and then you will plot now the vector W2. So now you see this is the new vector W2. You see here it is larger than W1, and from figure you can also see it is larger than the previous wedge. So then again, from the tail of DW we will now plot C2, which is having a new orientation, that is of a line, that is of the line AD2. Okay, this new orientation we will mark this point C2 based on the same scale, that was 1 centimeter equal to 10 kgs. Okay, based on the same scale, and on the same figure actually you will plot the new value C2, and then once again we know that orientation is also same, that is theta from the vertical. PA orientation remains the same. So I have drawn a line for PA, and then from the tail of the newly calculated cohesion I will start the vector R2, that is having an angle of alpha. Now this R2 is also at a new orientation, so I'll draw this line, and wherever they are intersecting, so I know that now I can find out the length, and from length I can find out the value of R2 as well as value of PA2. Next step, we are going to assume even bigger wedge, that's indicated with the pink color. Alright, now again CW is same, but W3 you see it is larger than W1 and W2. Orientation of PA is same, you see they are all parallel, so they are same orientation. So I'll just mark that line, and then the new orientation of C3, that is orientation of line AD3, that is new rupture plane orientation. Based on the orientation and the value of C3, that is length AD3 multiplied with the cohesion value. Alright, I'll mark this vector here, and from the end of from the tail of the vector C3 I will mark this line, and wherever they're intersecting, so this length, new length, is going to give us the value of R3 resultant, and this value will be now giving us the value of PA3. So now we have done 3 trial wedges, and we have obtained this force diagram here, that is showing us all the values of W's in that were set. The last step in this is to make to join the points where the R and P vectors are intersecting. You see here we have joined the points. This is the point here, first point, second point, and third point. So wherever they're intersecting we have marked a curve, just like this. We have marked a curve, and then we draw a line that is tangent, that is parallel to the wave vector, and we know that wave vector is straight, so that means its angle 90 degrees is there. So I have marked this line here, and wherever the vertical tangent is intersecting with this curve, So we will mark that point here and then draw a line parallel to the inclination of PA, because we know that PA is making an angle of theta with the vertical. So that means I will draw a line that is making an angle theta from this point of tangency. So wherever it hits the y-axis, so that means this should be the length of the weight vector, and from this weight vector we can now see that we can now assume a trial wedge that will have the same value of W, and from this we can find out the weight of the trial wedge that is going to fail, and PA is going to tell us the amount and the orientation of the rupture plane. All right, now the question comes that what should be the value of the R, or what will be the orientation of R. So for that purpose we have to draw a little again. So we go here, all right, so we look at this figure. So what we are going to do is that we will draw all these assumed failure planes and we will find the angles of them. So X is the angle between the first and the second wedges. This is the angle Y is between these two, and angle Z is between these two. So these are X, Y, Z are the angles, relative angles. So we have called these points, let's say G, H and I. So what you are going to do is that in the first step draw a line AO, okay, and then draw a line AG that is having an angle of phi from the horizontal. All right, so after drawing this line, what we are going to do is that we will draw from point G, we'll draw a next point H that is having an angle X from it. That was the first angle, that is the angle of rupture planes between the first two planes, first two assumption of the plane. And then similarly we will draw a next angle that is Y from the previous line H. So in this way we are going to mark the angles that we have calculated from the figure. All right, so and then lastly here, so the slope of AJ is the slope of R for a Fourier plane ADE3. Okay, so this is the slope R for the Fourier plane that we are assuming. So similarly what we are going to do is that based on the same principle, what we will do, just a minute, so let's say based on the weight vector that we calculated, so we will say that okay, this is the actual wedge that will have a weight that we got from the intersection of the curvature and the tangent. So that was the weight value, and based on that weight calculation I have marked and I said that okay, this is the vector that is going to fail. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I will find out, let's say this angle, let's call it as A angle A, and what will I do, I will mark that angle A from this AG line that was having angle phi, and I will mark it here. Let's say this is angle A. Just a minute. So this is the orientation of vector R for the Fourier plane. After marking an angle A, so this is the vector R for the selected failure plane. All right, so that's all for today. If you have any questions, so we can discuss that in class, but please go through it thoroughly, because and we will also do some numericals related to both of them. Okay ji, assalamu alaikum.